My name's Matt. I'm just a country kid from Wisconsin. So my journey all started back in about 2016. I always knew machine guns were illegal, but I didn't fully understand why. Why are machine guns illegal? What's going on here? And I learned about the NFA and the GCA. Yeah, I had heard those terms tossed around, but I didn't fully understand them or what their effect is actually on society or why they're still in play. Because, I mean, they violate the 8th Amendment, the 2nd Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the list goes on. So in my research in this particular topic, like, why does the NFA exist? I found out that it hasn't been challenged since 1939. And the defendant in that particular case was actually shot dead. He never even made it to his court date. So basically what happens when somebody gets an NFA charge, they hang a whole bunch of time over them. In my particular case, it's 64 years. And they plea out. Because they know, any good lawyer would be like, hey, this hasn't been challenged since 1939. The only guy that did challenge it didn't live to see his court date. These cases just don't go to the Supreme Court, and the only way you can take it to the Supreme Court is if you get found guilty. If they let the case go, if you're found innocent, anything whatsoever, your case does not go to the Supreme Court. So the only chance you have at fighting this is if they find you guilty. So you would have to want a guilty plea. You'd have to be some sort of special kind of stupid with a whole bunch of resources to want to fight the NFA because it's next to impossible. So what am I talking about here? Why the title of this video? Because, yeah, the Supreme Court did. They ruled that basically, I'll just go over them real quick. So in 1939, the last time the NFA was challenged, that is the Miller case. What they said in that case was all military/militia weapons are protected by the Second Amendment. That should end the NFA right there, right? Because if it's a military weapon, that would be an NFA weapon. Now understand, this case, the Miller case, was specifically about a sawed-off shotgun, and at that time the military had like the trench gun, and that was over 18 inches, and I believe that's why he left the door open for other NFA items by just saying all military/militia weapons are covered by the NFA. This way his successors would ultimately take the NFA down. I don't know if he was like politically pressured or paid money or something to rule against the Constitution, but I feel that he knew he was doing something terribly wrong, and that's why he left the door wide open. But again, no case has made it up to the Supreme Court since that point, because they know if a case specifically about the NFA makes it to the Supreme Court, the NFA and GCA are going to go away. But now fast forward to today, and the military has all NFA items. Like everything they have is an NFA item. So you would think that that in itself would take down the NFA. Because they ruled, in that case, the Miller case in 1939, all military and militia weapons. You can't really have a military weapon without being in NFA territory. Okay, so that clearly isn't enough. So let's go on. 2008, the Heller decision. They ruled that the Second Amendment is an individual right. You don't have to be actively serving the military or being in a militia for the Second Amendment to apply to you. Because that's the rub. The Second Amendment doesn't apply to you. The Second Amendment is written towards the government. That is a restriction on the government, and nowhere in the Second Amendment does it give the government the power to restrict anything. It says shall not be infringed. Yes, it talks about a militia in there, but that's just talking to the government why shall not be infringed is important. So you got the Second Amendment, you got all the text right there, which says this is why this amendment is so important, and this is how to treat it. Shall not be infringed. It does not grant any power to restrict any firearm in any way, shape, or form. But it goes on from there. They didn't just talk about it being an individual right. They also talked about common usage. Anything that's in common usage is protected by the Second Amendment. That would be your AR-15s, AK-47s, basically wipes all gun laws off the table. Then they also said anything that you would need to actively have a militia is protected by the Second Amendment. So we got the Heller decision and we got the Miller decision. Both of them just strike down the NFA and the GCA. So why does it still stand? Because in the Heller decision, that wasn't an NFA case. Yes, what they talked about dealt with the NFA, but it wasn't directly an NFA case, and that goes back to the problem. We haven't had a case go against the NFA since 1939. If one did, the NFA would be gone. Same with the GCA, and all gun control would follow. And you got to remember, if you're not advancing, you're retreating. So if we don't make the push, we are retreating, and we're going to take more and more gun control. The only way it's going to go away is with a push, an advance. So okay, that's pretty big. I mean, that pretty much makes the NFA unconstitutional. Same with the GCA. Okay, let's go on from there. 2010. Anything, any item that's utilized for self-defense, that's silencers, laser sights, knives, pepper spray, brass knuckles, butterfly knives, anything that can be used for self-defense at all. In the McDonald case in 2010, they said is protected by the Second Amendment. Well, that's silencers right there. That's machine guns. Why is the NFA still standing? Circling back around, because it hasn't been challenged since 1939. A lot of the reason it didn't really get challenged, because I've left this part out, is yes, all of these say the NFA is unconstitutional, but there's always been a balancing process. So they look at like gun laws, the NFA, the GCA, and they'd be like, yeah, those are unconstitutional. You can't argue with that. That is an unconstitutional law. However, balancing it against public interest, these items are an eyesore, they're in scary movies, the general public doesn't like them and or use them, so balancing unconstitutionality with public interest, we're going to lean on the side of public interest, which is the big key why a case hasn't moved up, because any good lawyer would tell their defendant like, hey, yeah, it's unconstitutional. However, what they're going to do is they're going to look at your unconstitutional NFA case and they're going to balance it against public interest. So even though you are 100% right, it is 100% unconstitutional. Yes, it's been affirmed by the Supreme Court several times. The NFA and GCA is unconstitutional. Should it actually make it to the Supreme Court, they're going to take public interest into account. And what if you lose? You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. So then the Bruin decision happens. That's 2022. That made huge steps forward in repealing the NFA and the GCA. The first one is they declared that the Second Amendment protects you in and outside your home, because that was an issue. They're like, oh yeah, the Second Amendment protects you inside your home. You can do whatever you want inside, but you step out into public space, you're not protected anymore. You're liable to all these gun control laws. And they said, no, that's not the case. And in and outside your home, you are protected. But the kicker with Bruin, like the really big decision there, is they reaffirmed that you need to remove public interest from the balance. The question is it or is it not constitutional? It's a yes or no question. There's no side notes. There's no balancing with public interest. Looking at text, tradition, and history, is this or is this not constitutional? And without being able to balance public interest, which is a card they've been playing for years, there's no reason why the NFA should stand anymore. I don't mean to repeat myself, but remember, if you're not advancing, you're retreating. So if we don't make the push right now, and that's the biggest problem why the NFA hasn't been challenged, is because it doesn't have a lot of public support behind it. People that care about NFA items already have them, so they don't care anymore. People that don't have them, the only reason they don't have them is because as a kid and through their young adult life, they were convinced that they are somehow dangerous and only bad guys have them. So they've stepped away from them. They're like, I don't want them. If people get them, all these events that happen are going to be more deadly. They're just better off banned because they don't know any better. And that's what I'm dedicating the rest of my life to, educating as much of the general public that will listen. 1, it's unconstitutional. 2, there is no added danger and or risk. And that's why I've been beating this topic into the ground, because I'm still getting decent views on it. And the more people I can school on this and understand, you're not stopping the bad guys from getting them. There's about 230 That was 2016, so it's probably more than that. But in 2016, it was like 230 arrests happened every single day over NFA violations. What does that mean? The bad guys already have all this stuff that you're worried about the bad guys having. The only person you're restricting is yourself, because you're the only one that don't have NFA items. So, if you feel you are too dangerous to have them, then fine, don't get them. But you're not stopping any bad guy from having them whatsoever. They could easily be used in every single incident that's happening right now. They just choose not to. They're inefficient. They don't work well. But back to the point of the video. We need a challenge to happen. It hasn't happened since 1939. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed in multiple different occasions, yes, the NFA is unconstitutional, but because it wasn't directly an NFA case, the NFA didn't get removed. The next time an NFA case makes it to the Supreme Court, dude, I'm not a betting man, but dollars to donuts, the NFA is gone. Because it doesn't have a legal leg to stand on anymore. For the longest time, yeah, everybody knew it was unconstitutional, but balancing public interest, they just kept it into play anyway, but that's gone. So it doesn't have a legal leg to stand on it, and it don't have a public interest defense anymore to keep it in power. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you'd like to help support the channel, got my Patreon right there. I also have affiliate links in the description down below. Just by clicking on those links, even if you don't purchase what that particular link is for, just clicking on it and doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway, a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.